Welcome to Stick Figure Sorcery, and in this video we will be going over many of the common playable species in D&D. There are dozens of different options, even just using the official ones published by Wizards of the Coast, who own D&D, so today I will only be talking about those released in the 2024 Player's Handbook, with a future video covering some of the more commonly used or fun species from 2014 that haven't been updated and released yet in 5.5e. Elves are a fantasy classic. They are slender, beautiful, magical people who live many times the lifetimes of humans with a deep love for trees, the stars, and nature. Descending from Fey travellers, their ancestry gives them several different benefits. Elves can't be magically put to sleep because they don't sleep the same as other humanoids, and are also resistant to being charmed, and they have some innate magic that they can cast. There are three subspecies: the Wood Elves, the High Elves, and the Dark Elves, otherwise called the Drow. The Wood Elves are the most tied to the nature their ancestors fell in love with, the forests and animals of the world. Light of foot, they move quickly and silently through the trees, having a faster walking speed, and as you reach higher levels you can innately cast several druid spells once per day. The High Elves are as equally magical as their wild cousins, but that magic is more arcane and wizardly, not druidic. Using their many centuries of life to master their chosen field, whether that is smithing, art, magic, or warfare, the High Elves can be among the greatest practitioners across the world in that craft. Depending on how high of a level you are, the spells you can cast once per day are Detect Magic and a small teleportation spell. The last of the subspecies released in 2024 so far are the Drow, elves that were banished from the surface of the world by their surface-dwelling cousins millennia ago. The Drow have been living in the Underdark, essentially a giant interconnected tunnel and cave system spanning the globe far beneath the surface. In official lore, this was because of their worship of a Spider Queen, Lolth, a demon prince who is a cruel mistress who accepts no weakness and will punish those who fail her viciously. Because of their existence being in an internally dark world, the Drow can see further in the dark than the other elves, and their spells are light and darkness themed. All elves start with 60 feet of dark vision, allowing a PC to be able to see in pitch blackness around them for 60 feet in grey and dim detail, and in dark shadows and dim light they can see like it is normal. For Drows, that distance is doubled to 120 feet. Up next are the Dwarves, an equally classic fantasy species. Short and hairy, with a love for mining, Dwarves also live much longer than humans. Known for their skill with their hands, particularly working with stone and metal, Dwarves make amazing weapons and armour and structures that dwarf any who visit. Being as tough as the stone they reside within, they get extra hit points every level and have resistance to poison damage and are harder to poison. In the 5.5e 2014 rules, Dwarves have a dark vision range of 120 feet, which is reflective of how they live underground in mountain kingdoms and mines. Orcs are tall, broad, tusked humanoids who in many worlds are tough, warlike people. Hard to kill because of their hard lives they live, orcs are almost as hearty as the dwarves. The average lifespan of an orc, however, is slightly less than a human because of this hard existence. Orcs are given the ability to charge into combat quicker than most, which also grants them some extra temporary hit points to help them stay in the fight. They also can shake off a first serious wound that they would take that would leave them unconscious. 120 feet of dark vision is also granted to Orc PCs. Humans are the most popular species in most D&D worlds. Filled with more ambition than anyone else, humans try to make the most of their short lives and change history, building huge cities and empires that might last for many generations. Human generations, that is, for it is rare that a kingdom will last for the lifetime of a dwarf, let alone an elf. As varied as the humans in the real world, this is reflected in the features given to human PCs. A human PC can choose any one skill to gain proficiency in, starts every morning with heroic inspiration, and gets to choose a second of a background feats to start with, which is a pretty powerful help. However, humans, like you and me, can't see in the dark and have no dark vision. One of the small peoples that populate Dungeons & Dragons are halflings. Loving good food, simple living, and good company, halflings try to get along with everyone. They can be very lucky, and sometimes things just find their way into the pockets of the closest halfling. Despite eating very well, they live almost twice as long as humans. Their small stature gives them several benefits. They are able to move around nimbly, moving through the space of larger friends without being hampered, or even to be able to hide behind those bigger companions. And despite being small, they are very brave and hard to frighten. They are also incredibly lucky and often avoid the worst outcomes. Halflings do not get dark vision. Similar in height, but not as chunky, are gnomes. Known for being clever in thought and clever with their fingers, gnomes are magical tinkerers at heart. Their magic extends their life past even dwarves' long lives, but not as long as the elves. This magical connection also protects them, giving you help making saving throws from attacks on your mental abilities. Gnomes have two subspecies, rock gnomes and forest gnomes. Rock gnomes gain the ability to cast a pair of wizard cantrips and can also make a little metal instrument that can be used to do some fun things. Forest gnomes get one cantrip and can cast the Speak with Animals spell a few times per day. Both gnomes have a 60-foot range of dark vision. Let's switch it up and go to the other end of the spectrum with Goliaths, the tallest of the species you can play in the 2024 rules so far. Being descendants of giants, that leads to Goliaths reaching heights of up to 8 feet tall. This height leads to long legs and a slightly faster walking speed, 35 feet compared to the standard 30 feet, and with the strength of giants in your blood, you can carry and push twice as much as normal. Once per day, you can also grow in size, giving you a faster speed and help with strength-based activities. The lifespan of Goliaths is similar to that of humans. There are 6 Goliath lineages, based off which of the 6 giant kin your ancestors were, each with a special ability you can use several times per day. Those with fire giant ancestry can do extra fire damage to a target you have hit, whereas those coming from frost giants do a smaller amount of cold damage but slow down the hit creature. Descending from cloud giants allows you to do a small teleport, and being tied to a storm giant allows you to hurt a foe that hits you, blasting them with some lightning damage. Hill giant descendants can knock over someone they have hit, and if you want to reduce some incoming damage, choose the stone giant lineage. No matter what lineage you choose, Goliaths do not have dark vision. Do you want to play as a dragon? Well, not exactly the same. The dragonborn species gives you a great way to get some of that flavour. Being covered in colourful scales like those of a dragon, and being able to breathe out a damaging stream of energy, but still walking around on 2 legs like a human, is the life of the dragonborns. In some worlds, they were magically created from the eggs of dragons, but in other worlds they aren't related to dragons at all, and just happen to look like humanoid dragons. When you reach a higher level, you gain the ability to fly for a short period of time, further emulating the dragons you look like. They have a similar life expectancy to humans. The colour of your scales, same as the colouring of dragons, relates to what type of energy your breath does, and also you gain resistance to that damage type. Acid damage for black and copper scaled dragonborn, cold for silver and white. If you want to breathe fire, you can choose between brass, gold, or red scales. Dragonborns of blue and bronze colouring get lightning. And lastly, poison damage if you are a green dragonborn. This damage starts at 1d10 and goes up as you reach higher levels, all the way up to a total of 4d10. Dragonborn get a 60 feet dark vision range. Do you want to be descended from an angel or other powerful being from the holy planes of existence? Or perhaps you were a blessing from a god to some devout worshippers? Maybe your ancestors have been attendants to a holy site for centuries and the divine magic of that place has touched your bloodline. Those are some of the causes for the existence of Asima in Dungeons & Dragons. They look almost identical to the species of humanoids they descend from, but with slight angelic perfections or changes that become more pronounced as you age into the role of an Asima. With lifetimes double that of humans, your features as a young Asima will be so similar that you won't stand out in a crowd, but by your 2nd century of life, it might be very obvious that you are more than a mere human. This divine connection you have gives you resistance to radiant and necrotic damage, allows you to cast the light cantrip, and once per day allows you to touch someone and heal them a little, whether you have to heal yourself or someone else. When you reach a slightly higher level, you can release your celestial energy once per day to do one of several powerful ongoing effects. You can fly, you can shine with an inner burning light, or emit a darkness that frightens those around you. When you have one of these effects activated, you also do a little extra damage. That would be either radiant or necrotic damage based off which of those effects you have up. Your celestial connection also gives you 60 feet of dark vision. Just as the upper planes can have an impact on the world and leave a species, so do the lower planes, and that leads to the creation of a tiefling. Horned like many demons and devils, and often with skin in unnatural colours, tieflings are unable to hide their fiendish legacy. This can be frightening or seen as exotic, enhanced by how rare they are, making tieflings further stand out in all but the largest cities where the population is so large and varied that all are equally ignored. All tieflings can also cast the thaumaturgy cantrip. There are 3 different fiendish connections your tiefling could have: infernal for those tied to the devils of hell, abyssal for those with a demonic connection, and chthonic when you are tied to eugoliths. Infernal lineage gives you fire resistance and the firebolt cantrip, and as you reach higher levels you can cast hellish rebuke and darkness once per day each. Poison resistance and the poison spray cantrip are given to those with abyssal ancestry, and they can level up to be able to cast ray of sickness and whole person each day. Lastly, chthonic tieflings gain the chill touch cantrip and necrotic resistance, and the spells false life and ray of enfeeblement. 60 feet of dark vision is granted to all tieflings. There have been several more books released in the 2024 edition of Dungeons & Dragons, and because of that there are now more playable species with the updated rules. Examples being Dampier, who are lesser vampire-connected PCs, or Warforged, who are sentient androids made of metal and wood, and even Changelings, who can make their appearance warp as needed to look like any of the other species, and can even change their height a little. An upcoming book also has a lupine species as part of it, which I'm guessing will be a werewolf-connected species much in the same way that Dampier are vampire-connected. All that to say, there are lots of variety letting you play the sort of fantasy creature you want to in Dungeons & Dragons, with more coming out all the time. Thanks for watching and hopefully being inspired for your next creation. Now get out there and roll some dice.